So this is a follow-up video that I've been asked to do on the chipper. I think I made the first video the start of 2023, and yeah, a few people have asked me how it's worked out, how useful has it been, how reliable has it been. So I'll talk about this for a few minutes. There'll be no chipping footage. You can see that if you go back to January 2023 in the last video that I made. But I'll just talk about some of the things that have happened. So if you see the other video, you might remember that I had it mounted on like a hand cart with a winch on the front, which was great on flat ground. I needed the winch to pull it up the ramp there onto the little hitch carrier, and it was sort of alright, but I had this power wheelbarrow anyway, which I wasn't using very much, and the more I looked at it, the more I thought that it might fit on there if I've just made some brackets and hinges and stuff, and then I could actually drive it around, because although it doesn't look much, you really feel the weight as soon as there's a slight incline. If you're pulling it by hand, you're kind of having to zigzag to get it anywhere, and it's heavier than it looks, the chipper unit itself. So anyway, I made it fit on here onto the power wheelbarrow, which is 4-wheel drive, and it's great. Now it'll go anywhere. It'll even go up steps. And I've had it in the most awkward places ever, which has saved me, a ton of time and effort. Being able to chip right there where the trees have come down or been cut or whatever. So I won't actually talk about the 4-wheel drive too long, but I'll show you anyway what I had to do, because this was like a dump box on here, and it hinged on the front, so I had to make these little aluminum hinges and drill a few holes, and the lever that would release the dump bucket now is what holds the chipper in place. And it's handy because if I have to change or adjust or sharpen the anvil, you've got to get underneath. So I can now I'll just put this down a sec. I can now just pull the lever and it'll tip forward, and I can get underneath there. But anyway, as for the chipper itself, it's been really good for what it is, for like less than $2,000 that I paid for it. The knives, I think they're 12 inches long, 2 knives on a drum. The motor 420cc is a pretty small engine, but easy to replace if anything happened or went wrong. I changed the oil after I think the first 5 or 10 hours. This is not the original little chute. This is actually for feeding hens. I just saw it's one of them scoops, and I just changed the shape a little bit, bent a few parts and drilled a hole, because this is better than the original chute that's on it, but even this is still kind of inadequate. I need something bigger. I just haven't had time to do it yet. Because I assume, because when the chip fires out, it's not very accurate. Most of it deflects, but often you'll get bits going skywards all over the place. So, but if you're just chipping in a backyard or something, it doesn't matter that much. But I assume this is quite a way down. You know, you think, well, if it was up here it'd be more accurate. There's less likelihood of it getting blocked up if you put too much through it at once, like, you know, wet hedge trimmings, or, you know, like conifers, something like that. Big leafy limbs, like big leaf maple. You know, it's kind of heavy, dense foliage that might cause it to block. But and because it's a drum, if it does block, it can be a bit awkward to get unstuck. But you know, not that difficult. So I'll pull this off. I'll just stop recording again. There's just 2 bolts that hold the infeed in place, and then it just swings over. And there's the 2 knives. There's the anvil at the bottom. A little rubber buffer here which is split and come off at some point. So the knives, getting them off looks easy, but you've got to be so careful, because these bolts are really shallow, like the cap where you put your socket. So you've got to really kind of scrape them clean before you fit your socket on there. And I take this is on a hinge, so it just kind of lifts off. I get that right out the way so I can get the wrench, you know, as flush as possible, unimpeded. I put a little block under the knives too, so that when you go to turn the wrench, the knives don't slip, because you strip these really easy, and then you're gonna have the right job trying to get them off. So I don't like that bit, but they've got to be shallow to make the clearance. So that's definitely something to watch for. I mean, I've not had a problem because I've been really careful. Like I say, I scrape all this residue away, and you know, grime and chip and what have you. So it's the nut. Oh, sorry, the bolt is nice and clean before I put the wrench on, because you need an extension on it to fit it in there. And so it's easy to be slightly crooked if you're not kind of feeling exactly that you're flush on there, and you've got to just turn it kind of really carefully and accurately. Otherwise, because if you strip that even a little bit, you're gonna have a hassle, and it'll just get worse thereafter. So that's not a great design, but that's just the way it is. The other thing, I did get some knives out a second ago. Just let me find them. I've just got some knives out. What did I do with them? There they are. Okay. These are just a bit messy. Oh no, they are damaged. I think that side's alright, but they do need... I think I took these off because one side was damaged and that side is still sharp. It's just grimy and dirty. So yeah, they are very narrow. It's called, you know, when somebody says hardened steel, I would take that with a pinch of salt, because there's, and different suppliers call it different things. Anybody can say something's hardened. What you want is someone who's actually referring to it as high-speed steel, not just hardened steel. That's shit steel that's been tempered. Because the problem I've found with these knives, these blades, is that they do chip really easy. Like, just not so much get dull, but you just lose little chunks out of them. Especially if you're putting through really kind of rock hard deadwood, from which certain trees seem to produce. Grand fir is one here. The deadwood it just becomes like cement, and it'll damage these knives. I mean, as it is, I've got the means here at home to sharpen them, so it's not that big a deal to me. Because like I say, I can sharpen them at home, like in an hour or something at night. And I made sure I got plenty of spare sets as well, because it's not very good steel, whatever it is. So and what I did do as well, I tried to, because you notice it's a very sharp angle on the cutting edge. So I tried to make the angle a bit wider, thinking that they'd last longer, which that did work. But what happened, which I was unaware of with drum chippers, is that it relies on that angle, evidently, to actually suck the branches through. You know, it kind of, when I had this the wider angle on the edge, I was really having to sort of force them down, force the branches in, like every one having to hold, whereas it should just kind of suck them in there. It was like, it's called gravity fed, but the momentum of it, and because of that angle that they're sharpened to, they do kind of get sucked down through the machine really kind of efficiently and effortlessly. If you're having to force them down, then there's a problem. So aside from the blades, the anvil, the oil, the air filter, there's not much else to do maintenance wise. There's 2 grease nipples on the drum. There's one here and one that's behind the belt cover. There's just a few little bolts. You just take them off, and you'll find a grease nipple. Behind here there's 2 belts, and I have had to tighten them up once. It's not a big job. I think you loosen. There's like 4 bolts to loosen, and then you set. I think there's another one in there, another 1 or 2 inside, and then you tighten up, or you push or pull these bolts depending on what you want, and reset them, and it moves the engine, which either tightens or loosens the belts to how you want them. And other than that, I've had to do nothing really. There was it's probably still over there somewhere. I'll just find it now. There was this thing. This has been hanging around in the way, being moved from one place to another for ages. This was on here, and it was like a cut-off. There's a little button in there which cuts off the power. If you bang on this, so if you're supposed to stop you leaning into it or something, but it was going off every time you touched it, so I took it off and unplugged the wiring that's underneath there, because it was just going off every few minutes. So the chute is long, obviously, so you can't physically reach all the way down to where the drum and the knives are, but its other purpose is so the limbs have something to rest on, because if it was much shorter, any shorter, they'd kind of want to be tipping out, so you'd have to hold every one all the way kind of in until there was more weight on that side than this side. So having it long, you know, there's a couple of reasons for it. The diameter of it is a different matter. That's a bit of a nuisance, and that's something that I do want to do, is widen it on the sides. It's not a difficult job for me because I have the gear to do it. I just haven't done it yet amongst a million other things I need to do. But the problem is, whenever you have a bit of a crutch that kind of, you know, you're trying to push something down and it won't, and it's usually light branches that are squashing and bending when you're trying to push them in, instead of them carrying on all the way down, they're kind of bending on you, and they're so light and flimsy that you can't force them down. Now I've seen people with they make like a plunger, so it can be, you know, like a pole with a lump of wood on the end that's too big to actually fit into the opening where the knives are, so no matter what you did with it, it couldn't find its way into the knives, but it'll push any awkward brush all the way down there. What this really likes is long pieces that are narrow, you know, like conifers are good here obviously for it. Little bushy things not so good, because they tend to just get jammed on the sides and you can't reach them. So I'll probably just cut it off here, get rid of this and build a new one, same length but sort of wider on the sides, so I can at least, you know, turn them if they're getting stuck top to bottom, and then they'll slip in a lot easier. But I should keep the length really. The other thing I should say is, because it's a drum chipper, there is no way out other than through those knives, through the blades. So if you drop anything in there, it's going through. And the worst thing that happened to me was I dropped a pair of sacketeers out of my top pocket, which I forgot were in there, and they went through and made a right mess of the sacketeers. Are obviously destroyed, but it ruined a set of knives and badly chipped one side of the anvil. So and there's nothing you can do once it goes in there. It's like it's pretty depressing. So I made that mistake once, and I haven't done it again. Thankfully, there was no catastrophic damage, because I shut it down really quick and just had to listen to it banging around in there. So but at least somebody else didn't do it. It was me, and there was nobody else to blame. It was a careless mistake. It was good. The job was going really well. I was really pleased with myself on that day until that happened. So this is marketed, I should say, as a, I think they say it's either 5 or 6 inch diameter. It's sort of ambitious. I mean, it will take branches that big, but you kind of have to, you learn how to do it. Like if you've got short pieces, you kind of just let them drop in there, and they just kind of bounce around inside for ages, and you carry on putting other stuff in at the same time, and the short piece will gradually get smaller and smaller until it's all gone. Or if you've got bigger pieces, you've got to kind of keep hold of it and kind of just let it in gradually, let it grab a bit, pull it back, grab a bit, pull it. It's nice if there's some twigs on the end, a bit of foliage you can hold, so it's not shaking your hand to bits. But it does work. It does get through it, but obviously avoid really hard wood if you can. Dead wood that's gone hard of a quite a chunky diameter, because it'll damage the knives. A friend of mine who has a similar small machine, he had a set of knives custom made, paid a lot more for them, but he said it's like miles better than what these standard ones are. So these are obviously not a substitute for a big machine, but they're better than throwing brush on a truck. Like if you just do occasional chipping, or you're just starting out, then this is going to be a lot better than throwing brush on a truck and cutting it down. When you start doing more regular big trees, then it's going to be insufficient, especially if you've got good access. I mean, the thing with this, having the 4-wheel drive, can make it it gives you a lot more options. Like somebody like me that does do a lot of big jobs, I'll factor this in. The trade-off, losing the chipping capacity and speed, can be made up for in the fact that I'm not dragging stuff out miles from the back garden to a front, or if there's steps or it's really narrow access or something like that, or even a short driveway. Like because I've got this set up where it fits on the little trailer there, on some driveways that I work on, they're really kind of short driveways in the city where there isn't enough room to put the bigger machine on. I mean, even though I only have a relatively small truck, I'm still, with the truck and the bigger chipper, I'm still 36 feet, and I need at least 10 foot of room for chipping. So if somebody's only got a short driveway, I can't get on there unless I want to mess about taking the chipper off and turning it sideways and then reversing towards the side of the machine. So this has been dead handy for that too, but the main the most beneficial thing has been chipping in backyards where people are happy to keep the chip. I mean, in some cases I've chipped into like a little dump, a power dumper like cart, and in the back, and driven it out up ramps and onto the truck. I've done that as well, and that's worked well. It's nice when you can get the chipper right under the tree, but like I say, it's for the money. Like I forget what it was, 1,700 at the time. Sometimes they come down in price, and there's other ones like this, maybe even better than this. This is from Princess Auto, and I can't. They've done a good job. I mean, it's a funny looking thing. It's a funny shape, but it's worked really well for me, and I've used it loads of times. So, but you do need the sets of knives. You should probably get a spare set of belts. You got to do that oil change after whatever it is, 5 or 10 hours, which is easy. You just unscrew it there and tip the machine until it pours out. So and then there's the air filter too. But I'm, like I say, I'm a bit spoilt though, because I put it on the 4-wheel drive. If it wasn't on that, I'd be limited to when I would use it. I had it on that cart, which was manageable until there was hills. Now I did have a little winch on the front which I could wind it, but it did work. And if that's all I could justify though, spending the money, 1,700, it's, I would say, get one. Whether you're tree service, small tree service, or a landscaper, gardener type, you know, you can't. How are you going to make something like that for under £2,000? You're not, are you? Really? So I think it's money well spent. All right. So for those who asked for this vid, I hope that's answered some of your questions. All right. Oh, sun's in my eyes. See you next time.